I'm moved by what I hear. I will now change my plans for tomorrow.
So, hello, Tobias. Nice of you to make time this afternoon. Last week on the show, you were very critical of Boris Johnson. You said he needed to go away and be quiet and stop attacking the current Prime Minister. I've not spoken to you since the publication of the report. What is your reaction to its findings that Boris Johnson lied deliberately to Parliament?
Well, I very much enjoyed your introduction there. You are, if I may, sensationalizing this, because the big difference now between our vote on Monday and perhaps how things looked a week ago is that Boris Johnson has left the building. He's chosen to run away, and that changes this vote considerably, because there is now no credibility at all. There's no effort to try and keep him in place to justify perhaps that this Privileges Committee had got it wrong. I mean, firstly, the scale of this, 90 days, nobody ever anticipated this. And it's probably because there was a 90 days punishment that Boris Johnson thought he had no choice but to depart. So, yes, we do have this vote on Monday, but many MPs simply want to get back to the bigger picture, talking about things like Ukraine, talking about migration issues following that event in Greece, talking about Prince William's initiative, for example, or indeed the teachers' strike as well. These are the important issues. Boris Johnson has gone. I can't imagine anybody will be wanting to support Boris Johnson or indeed vote against this. We want to get back to work. That's what we want to do because this pantomime is dragging on, and go back to the integrity and the trust that Rishi Sunak wants to build. Absolutely right. And it's been harder to do that as long as this pantomime has dragged out. I would actually see this as an opportunity for the Prime Minister to step forward, to regroup, to set out his stall as to how life will be different now that we're Boris Johnson and all the fanfare that he's departed is out the building.
There's been huge debate about whether or not the committee went too far by suggesting that Boris Johnson's parliamentary pass be revoked. What's your take on that? What's your position?
I mean, again, I don't have a strong position on this. It does seem a bit extraordinary, but we're now getting into the weeds of the issue. And I'm doing exactly what I'm trying to move on from.
But you're voting tomorrow, so you can't move on. You can move on Tuesday by all means, but tomorrow you're all expected to turn up and vote.
No, we're not.
And debate it, aren't you?
If to make it clear how this works, the Privileges Committee, I can't imagine a single person in Parliament is actually going to find themselves disagreeing with it. There may be one or two old supporters of Boris Johnson, but the majority of people will either choose to accept it and may not be there, or indeed will vote to support it. Okay, but as a matter of business, as I say, because Boris Johnson has quit and is no longer a member of Parliament, to one degree, it's actually academic because he's done a runner. Now, to make it very, very clear, that provides the opportunity. The big difference between the spike in Boris attention that we've had over the last week or so compared with previous times is that he's no longer a member of Parliament. And that does give a clear bit of road, finally, for the Rishi Sunak to declare where he wants to take the country. Because as long as this goes on, this remains a distraction. This is where colleagues are frustrated. It's a distraction against us focusing on scrutinising Labour's policies.
Undoubtedly,
but
let's
just setting out his own vision.
Undoubtedly, but this is a story that we are all talking about because it is a major piece of political choreography tomorrow, as you have pointed out. What will you be doing, Tobias?
Well, I really do not want Boris Johnson to disrupt Parliament any further. I'm actually taking the Defence Committee on an important visit to Portsmouth. Our Navy is too small. I'd love to be talking about that.
So you won't be there in the House of Commons. You won't be there in the House.
If I'm back in time to make it very, very clear, then certainly I will endorse the report. But I'm not going to go out of my way, as I say.
Why not?
Make it really,
Why
really
not? You are a man who has come on this radio station and even on my show and time again, stood up for integrity in politics. Many people look to you, actually, and I know this because the listeners will text in and say, what a jolly good chap you are. And they will say that you are an example of an MP that shows integrity on not just as a singular event, but throughout your career. And the moment that you need to show real integrity, which is to be in the House of Commons tomorrow, and to ensure that your colleagues and the public see that Conservative MPs are standing up for standards in British political life by being in the House of Commons when this debate takes place, and you're saying you can't guarantee you'll be there.
Well, again, you're making a big issue out of this. I was one of the first people, as you allude to there, to dare to stand up to say Boris Johnson is not fit to be Prime Minister because of those very videos have now come out again circulating, because there was a lack of clarity, of leadership, of focus. There was an absence of a chief of staff, some disciplinarian in number 10 holding Boris and indeed the rest of those number 10 into account. So I made it very, very, very clear. Indeed. What I won't do is have my life and indeed the work that I do continue to be disturbed by Boris Johnson, because Boris Johnson wants that attention.
Of course, I understand that.
Absolutely. If I'm there, I will vote. But we know the outcome of this vote. Everybody endorses where the committee has actually gone to, apart from those who are trying to find small reasons, such as having a pop at Bernard Jenkins, for example. My goodness. It's time to draw a line. If I'm there, I'll absolutely endorse it. But if I'm not going to lose any sleep over it, because, as I say, the will of Parliament, as far as I understand it, is to support this committee's findings.
Tobias, I'm going to put to you something that is an example of a text that I'm getting. I get a live stream of texts while I'm on air, and I'm having a look at them. And this is absolutely typical of people that are texting in as you speak to me now. This text from Simon. Good afternoon, Sangita. Always love your show. I cannot believe what I'm hearing from Tobias Ellwood. This pantomime, as he described it, will end tomorrow with a damning vote on the practices of Mr. Johnson.
It's ended already.
What he is actually saying, that's you, what Mr. Ellwood is actually saying is that he is casting a feeling of doubt over the vote by abstaining. As did Michael Gove this morning. I'm extremely disappointed, said Simon. What would you say to Simon, Tobias?
Well, with respect to Simon, I hope he understands, firstly, that I've been pretty clear-cut as what I believe, where Boris Johnson should go. The big change, as I say, is Boris has quit. He's no longer an MP. So, in fact, he's not even subject to some degree to to a 90 days disciplinary action, because he's no longer there. The pass issue is obviously a different matter. But I hope he understands that I've got a wider job as chair of the committee to then ensure that our defence posture is improved. And that's what I need to do. Do I allow Boris Johnson to continue? If there was any chance that Boris Johnson's friends and so forth could somehow change the outcome of the report that's already been voted upon and published to the actual to the House, then absolutely I would be there. But I have to make judgments on these things. If I'm back, absolutely I will.
What should Rishi Sunak do? That's the question to my listeners. You're saying you're busy on Defence Committee business. You're not necessarily going to turn up. What should Rishi Sunak do?
Well, I think everybody's going to need to make their own minds. But as I say...
He's the Prime Minister of the country. Let me just play you the clip again. Just one moment, Tobias. I'm going to let you hear once again for clarity what Rishi Sunak said when he stood outside 10 Downing Street ahead of taking office.
This government will have integrity, professionalism, and accountability at every level. Trust is earned, and I will earn yours.
The way he can earn people's trust is by turning up and voting tomorrow.
No, I'm sorry, but that is your interpretation of the mechanics of what's going on at the moment. And I understand that. It's an absolutely, there's a strong case for that. But I can tell you from an MP's perspective, because Boris Johnson quit, he's ran off the political battlefield. He is no longer there. That allows the rest of us to start to move forward and draw a line from this and accept already the committee's hearings. Many committee hearings present their reports, as indeed my reports do as well. And they just pass through with a majority of MPs simply accepting it. And that's what's going to happen. I hear you say this, and it's very, very passionate on the day itself. I'll do all my best to get back there.
But Rishi Sunak, I'm asking you about...
Do I allow Boris to continue to distract my work?
The question this hour is actually about the Prime Minister Rishi Sunak, but I'm going to bring you a couple of other texts that you're convinced about what I'm saying and why I'm posing this question about the Prime Minister. This text from Jules. Sangita, please let Tobias know that he's lost my vote if he does not turn up to vote tomorrow. This text from Lucy: Mr. Ellwood is wrong. It's 90 days now because Boris Johnson betrayed the confidentiality of the report before it was published. The Tories have an opportunity to support the upholding of standards in public life. Mr. Ellwood is being cowardly and self-interested, like the Tories in the main, including Rishi Sunak. No change. These are the messages that I'm getting. This is not something that is being constructed by the media. Tobias, I'll ask you once again, do you think it is in the interests of the Conservative Party, who we know will be fighting a general election not too long away, for the Prime Minister of this country to turn up to the House of Commons and look as though he meant what he said when he stood on the doorstep of Number 10 and said he was restoring integrity and will win over the trust of the general public once more?
I'm moved by what I hear. I will now change my plans for tomorrow. As I say, my job is, I really worry about our defence posture. I really worry about what's coming over the hill. But I will now change my plans tomorrow. I will come back early and I will vote to support the Privileges Committee. But I do so, as I say, allowing, in some degrees, Boris Johnson is seen then to continue to win, as is a disruptor in us being able to get back to what we need to do. It's very individual MP to make that judgment. I'm happy to be persuaded, by good people who listen to your show, who expect a high standards. And you're absolutely right. If I can't emulate those higher standards, where do we go?
Tobias Ellwood, thank you very much indeed. And just to remind listeners, Mr. Ellwood had said that he has listened to you and he will be going to the House of Commons tomorrow, to the Chamber, to support the Privileges Committee.